Yes, hello everyone. My name is Rushoka Marvin. I'm here to take you through API development. It's going to be a very fantastic experience. I'll delve deep into advanced topics like serialization and help you will understand what is API development in simple terms. So first of all, I'll like to actually explain to you what is an API. So an API is simply a way of actually communicating between the front end and the back end. You get? So in the process of actually doing this, we need to actually handle a few things like serialization. So what is serialization? So I'll give you a scenario. For example, consider you are on an island and you are required to actually communicate with another person who is actually not in the same place as you are. For example, he's on the other side of the island, so you need to actually communicate with that person. Obviously, when you shout, they might not really hear you, or even if you actually have your cheat and you have it, but then you can't actually send it to them. You get? So you need to actually send the cheat, but then there's no way you can actually send it. So one way of doing it is by actually getting a bottle, then placing the cheat into the bottle and then throw the bottle over the sea. Obviously, it will float if at all it doesn't reach directly. It will just float until it reaches the destination. Okay, that's what you need to know about serialization. It's a way of actually making our data in a format that is accessible to another web app or to another framework. You get? So Django has complex models of which they are hard. It's really hard to actually make sense of out of them if at all the application that is going to use them is different. You get? What do I mean here? Take a scenario of React and then Django. So you have React, of which React is trying to fetch information from Django, but it can't actually understand it. You know, Django has complex data types, has complex models, of which React doesn't actually know that there is a model somewhere. It doesn't actually know. It's interested in an API. It's interested in fetching information. So whatever architecture is on the other side of the back end, it's not interested in that. So Django has to make sure that it provides the data in a format that is understandable, that is universally accepted by the rest of the other frameworks. So one of the universally accepted formats is JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. So what serialization does, so this serialization is not actually provided by Django, but rather by REST framework. So what this serialization does, it kind of gets the Django complex data model schemas and tables into a format that is understandable to the rest of the third-party applications that are going to use our API. So it actually converts the JSON it actually converts the complex data models into a JSON format. This JSON format is then so since this JSON format already contains the data that was in the models, so the only thing the other apps have to do is to actually get this data that is within the JSON, of which JSON files can actually be fetched from any can be fetched by any other software. It can actually be fetched by Flutter, can be fetched by React, Angular, and so on and so forth. So that's the entire process of actually coming up with an API. So the other thing that you need to know about this API development, you need to know the HTTP requests. So we have four fundamental HTTP requests. We have post, have get, have put or patch, then you have delete. Get. So sometimes you want to actually retrieve data from the database, that is getting. Then if at all you want to actually add data into the database, then that's post. If at all you want to update a specific section of the data that is in the database, then you have to put. Then if at all you want to delete the entire table or the entire, they call it a query set. If you want to delete it like the entire query set, then you need to actually, you can actually use the delete. Or if at all you want to just delete a given object instance, you can actually do that by using the delete. So you've heard me talking about query set, and then I've also talked about the object instances. So what are they? So an object instance is simply a row of data out of the many rows that you can have, I'm just picking a single row of data. So if at all I have a table of users, I just pick the first user. You get a row user, for example, username, email, and pass. Okay, username, email, and then date of birth. So that's one object instance. But then if I choose all the users from user 1, user 2, user 3, then that's a query set. So I will actually delve deep into these two topics and I'll help you understand why I have been talking about them here. So I'll definitely start off with our VS Code and I'll implement our first API. So okay, I'm going to assume that you're already familiar with Django, so it's going to be easy for me to skip a few things. So I'll immediately go to my VS Code and start from there. So in the VS Code, I would like to actually just get here. Let me first see any available projects such that I don't implement everything from scratch. Okay, let me just remove everything here such that we are in the same, we move together at the same pace. Then okay, so I have a project here. The project is called API Pro, API project. So I have the project called API Pro, and then I have the app called API app, and then I have the environment. So this environment is kind of important if at all you want to have all your dependencies in one place without affecting the rest of other dependencies that are globally on your local machine. Yeah? So that's why I have the environment here. But the environment here, it only has the REST framework. So if at all you are okay with installing the REST framework directly onto your PC, it's okay. You don't need the environment. But then it's a good practice to have the environment there. So I'm going to start off with running our first application such that we get to know what we have at the moment. Yeah, so but first of all, I have the app, I have the project, I haven't actually done anything. So I'm going to first of all go to the project section and add our app. Yeah. So I'm going to come here in installed apps and add the app, and the app is going to it's called API app. Yet. So I will save this. So after saving that, most of the times I like using command prompt in a terminal. Yeah, so let me create an extra. Let me have two of them. Yeah, so I'm going to have. May I use command prompt more than okay. So, but then any use doesn't matter. So from there, I would like to actually run our project Python manage.py run server. So this is basic Django. So as you can see that if you are running this for the first time, you will definitely see some warnings here, and yeah, because of the migrations. So I just need to actually get this URL and then go to my browser and then paste the URL there. So obviously it's going to bring this default page. And when we go back to our VS Code, so you've already tested and we've confirmed that everything is okay. So we can go back to our VS Code and handle the remaining things. So we need to actually create our first model. So what we are actually the API, by the way, the API that we are going to develop, this API is going to be just doing the CRUD functionalities that I've talked about. So it's going to handle post and get for now. I'm not going to handle delete and update because of I don't want to make the video too lengthy. So I'm going to actually handle get and then post. So to do that, I'm going to first of all create some Django models. I'm going to go to models.py and create our first model. So I'm going to use a class and I'm going to call the class post. Then I'm going to say model as our argument, and then there I'll go ahead and create the fields that I want. So I'm going to create our first field, and it's going to be, for example, I can say title, and the title can be, I can create the first title and I say models dot char field, and then I can give it a maximum length of let me say 150. Then from there I'm going to create some extra two fields. So this can be I can give it name, then I can give this one email. So for the email we use email field, and for it you can have a default, and the default can be nothing. So we our have our model created, but then this model can't actually appear in our database, in our admin section, if at all we don't register the model. So we need to go to the admin section and first of all import our models. I'm going to say from dot models import the model that we want, and that's the post. So I'm going to come here and say admin dot site dot register, and then we add the model, which is post. So once we are done with that, we've already registered our model. So we can actually go and take it out. So we can, so first of all, before you actually go to the browser to check it out, you need to make sure that you made the migrations. Migrations, you are just making sure that you are transferring each and everything that you've made onto the database. So here we're going to start off by saying Python manage.py make migrations. So Python manage.py make migrations. So I've made the migration, and then I'll go on and migrate. So Python manage.py migrate. So the migrations are done. So after doing this, you realize that the error that we are having here initially will disappear. Obviously, me, I never had it because I already had most of the things already set up. So I had already made some migrations. So from here, we'll go ahead and check out can go on and check out our our can go on and check our admin and see what we have at the moment. So I'm going to come here and I add admin. As you can see, I'm already logged in. Let me log out. So when you actually, it's your first time to actually create this project, they will definitely return such, I think, return this first section. So you need to actually have a super user. So what do I mean by a super user? Super user is just your login credentials that you are going to use to access the admin section. So you need to actually come and create your super user. So obviously me, I already have the super user, but to take you through the entire process, you just need to say Python manage py create super user, then after that you just enter. So after doing that, they'll ask you for the email, they ask you for the password, you just place in any password. Yeah, so it's better to actually put in a stronger password, or even if you put a weaker password, they warn you, but you can definitely use it as well. So I won't actually run this because I already have it. So I'll definitely just go straight and check out the admin section. So the admin section, do I even remember the password? I think it was Marvin. Try and see. I might have to actually create a super user as well. Okay, I still remember it. Okay, that's good. So as you can see that uh, I now have the post added. Yeah, so I have the post added. So the model has already reflected. You can actually do it on your end and see how it actually comes out. So when I say add the post, realize that these are the fields that I had initially that I actually manually placed in our model section. So you can say I have the title, so I can say doctor, then I can say Eric, then I can say Eric 1213 at gmail.com. Then I will save. I can create as many as I want. Apparently I'm using the admin to actually to do the post. Right? Post is adding something in the database, so I actually have two object instances. Get me right, these are object instances, they are not query sets. But then if I get the two of them at once, then that they qualify to be query sets and not just objects. You get? So that's what I was meaning when I said query sets and then object instances. So after creating, so I'm done with creating the post, and this is just a sample of actually showing you that we can our models actually work now, but this is not how we are going to be adding, like how this is not how we are going to be making the posts, because obviously React, Flutter, and you can't access this at Django admin. So we need to actually have these posts done from the JSON kind of format. Yeah, so from there we can go back to our VS Code and handle the remaining things. So we need to actually handle a few more things, and one of the things that we need to handle, we need to actually implement some views that will enable us create a logic for getting and posting. So I'm going to come to the views and handle the logic from here. So what are we going to do? We are going to actually first of all import two things. Let's first of all import our models, and then let's first of all import the model from models import a post. But I let me first handle the serialization. As I told you that this model can't actually make, like other frameworks or other web-based applications that are not Django-based applications, can't actually make sense of what is coming from these ends of the Django. They can't. So we need to actually serialize the data that's such that it's in a format that is acceptable by the rest of the web applications. So I'm going to create an extra field here. Sorry, an extra file. I'm going to call it serializer.py. Serializer.py, yeah. So, and within this serializer.py, we're going to actually import our model. So I'm going to say from, because we need to serialize the model. So from dot models import the post, which is our model. So once we are done with that, we need to create a class. So here we add the post, which is the model, and then the serializer. Serializer, okay. Then I'll actually come here. I need to actually handle a few things inside this in the argument section. So, but before I do that, I need to actually import one extra thing, and that's going to be from REST framework. From REST framework, import serializers. So these serializers come with the REST framework package. So that's why we need it to actually do the serialization. So we need to come here to serializers dot serializers, because we want to serialize. We want to serialize the models. So we say model serializer. Then after, we are going to come here and handle. So we're going to create a class here, and the class is going to be meta. Take note of the uppercase. So then we are going to call the model that we want. So the model, what's the model? The model is going to be the model is post. Then what else? Then we need to actually include certain fields. So I want to come here and say fields, and they are going to be equal to. So we use an array. You can call it a list, and I want to serialize the title. I also need the name, and I need email as well. So once I'm done with that, I'm ready, good to go. This is all I need to do in serialization. And that's nice. It's really nice. There's not okay. When someone hears serialization, someone might think that it's some complex thing that needs to be made. This is all you need to do. Initially, there are other ways of doing it, but it's kind of hectic. This is the best way of doing it. So from there, we can go straight to our views and handle the remaining thing. So we can actually, so we are done importing the post, so we can import the serializer as well. So from the serializers, oh, I use serializer, okay. Let me just leave it. Let me just leave it the way it is. Dot serializer import. So from the serializer import, let's import post serializer. Then after that, so we can actually start. By the way, I use function-based views, and I rarely use the class-based views. Yeah. So I find function-based views easy. So it's kind of awkward if you tell it to another person. Yeah, but me, I'm okay with function-based views. So I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call it post. I'm going to call it post. And, within the function, I'm going to pass in a request. So apparently, I'm just going to be handling get and then post. Yeah, that's what I want you to do. So from here, we need to actually do the getting. So I'm going to start with get. So we say if request method is equal to get. So there are other ways of doing it, but this is the straight, like it's very straightforward to understand. The logic can actually make sense. Other people use API view, other people use generic APIs, but I will definitely go for this one because it actually kind of abides with the Python logic and actually understand the ifs very well. If you already know the functions, you already know ifs, you can actually make sense of what is happening at the moment. So after that, we are now saying if request method equals get, we need to actually fetch because we are fetching. So I'll then create a variable here, call it post, and I'll say post equals call now my post function, and I'll say post dot objects dot then I'll leave it like that. So from there, I'll go ahead and do the serialization. I'll say serializer equals to, so we're going to call the post serializer, and so from there we can actually call the posts, yeah, these posts that we are from fetching. So after that, you can just return. We are not going to return render, but rather return the JSON. So in order to use the JSON, we need to actually import it. So I'm going to say from Django, because JSON response is from Django. Just need to say from Django HTTP import JSON response. Yeah, so when I come here and I call the JSON response, it will definitely do. So I'm going to come here and say serializer. Our serialized data is what we are calling now. So we are calling our serialized data, and we are saying, so now one thing that you need to actually modify here is this post. We need to actually add one extra thing, which is many equals true. Reason why we do that is because by default we can't retrieve the entire query set. We can only like retrieve object instances, so we can retrieve one thing at a time. So with many equals to true, we kind of override that and make sure that we can actually like query the entire object, like the entire query set. So from there we go straight to like serializer.data, and then we add one extra argument here. So we need to actually handle self. Otherwise, if you don't handle this, self has to be false. Otherwise, if you don't handle this, you can't actually do the get. You will definitely get errors. So after doing this, this is enough to actually handle any get. So if I actually go back to my browser here, if I go back to my browser, you can actually see something here. So let me first get this. I want to keep them separate. So if I go here, oh sorry, I had forgotten just one extra thing. And we need to actually do the URL routing, which hasn't yet been made. So we need to actually create urls.py file in our app, specifically in the app, because it's already existing in the project. So I can simply say urls.py. I want to treat this app separate from the project, because you can have many apps, you get. So it's advisable to have different. So people have used API app, but someone can actually use account, someone can use API. So now this app specifically for handling the API. This one is for handling authentication. This one is handling this. So you can have many apps within the same project. That's why we treat these views and URLs separate. Then from there we can actually, so we've created the URL section here. So I have already the URLs here, but there are a few things that we need to actually add. So let me just get it from the other section and put it here. I don't actually need this admin section, so we can remove it. And so all I need is, I don't actually need this. It doesn't actually come. It's not supposed to be there. So by default, that's what you need. So I don't need this at the moment. I don't actually need it. So I'm going to add my endpoint, which is post. You can give it anything, posts. Then I'll come here and so I need to actually import my views. I'm going to come here and say from .views import the view that I want. Okay, the function, I can call it the function, which is post. And then so I'm going to come here and call the post. So once I'm done with that, I think we are good to go. Let me check it out. Let's check it out and see how things go. So from there we can actually check out the post. Yeah, we can actually check out the post, and it's posts, not post. So yeah, we are getting some error. Obviously, I know where the error is coming from. Let's go back. Let's go back here in the views. So we have this post, have this post, but this URL, remember this URL by is not linked to the project. However much it's in the app section, but it's not linked to the project. You need to actually go here and import this include, and then come here and create one extra path. Come here down and create an extra path, and so definitely just leave this one empty, and then you come here and include the URL that you've just created in what? In your app section. So we include and say, so it's a string, you treat it as a string. So we're going to come here and say the app name, which is API app dot URLs. URL. Yeah, it's definitely like that. So let's save it and see how things go. So let's go back to our browser and see. So we can actually refresh and see. If we go back here, realize that I had created this post here, so it was kind of overriding with the existing posts that come with the post realizer. So I had to actually, so as you can see here, I actually had to make some adjustments. As you can see here, I had to actually use a different post format. You can see that this is lowercase, and in order not to actually make any like it shouldn't be overriding. Okay? So I had the post here, which is almost the same as the post that is here, so it's kind of override. So it's advisable to actually use a different name from the one that is used in the module section. So once you do that, you have to actually go back to the URLs as well and adjust it. As you can see that I adjusted it. So once you are done with that, you can actually see that we are able to fetch our data that we created in our admin. But you don't want to you don't really want to actually be creating to do the pushing or the posting from the admin. You want to actually be able to create it from somewhere where everyone can access and not necessarily going to the admin section to create. So, but we've actually implemented one of the HTTP requests, and that's the get. We can actually retrieve data from the complex data models and actually provide it in a form. You can see that this is a list. You can see that this is a list of it's like a dictionary. You can see, so this is definitely what our JSON kind of format. Then from there we can actually go back and handle the posting. We can actually handle the post such that we can create our own data without relying on the admin section. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the admin section. Sorry, I'm going to go back to my VS Code to handle the remaining work. So as you can see here, we are going to go back to the views. So remaining stuff have to be can be handled from this section. So I'm going to actually go on and create another condition, which is going to be, I can say, leave request dot method is equal to post. So what should we do? Yeah. So if it's equal to post, what should we do? We need to actually get the data. So we can say data is equal to we need to actually use one extra thing, which this extra thing isn't actually needed when you use REST framework fully, but me I'll actually zero down to using this you this package. So I'm going to come here and say from Django dot going to come here and create one extra thing. I'm going to come here and say from Django. Oh, sorry. So, but I'll go on and actually use this importation instead. I'll import from REST framework dot parsers. Let's import parser. Sorry, we import the JSON parser. So if you actually use REST framework and you go for response instead of JSON response, you can actually get rid of a lot of things. So yeah, okay. After that, after importing the JSON parser, I'll definitely come here and the JSON parser. So we treat it as a function, then we get the parser. And so what do you want to pass? We want to pass the request. Remember, now we are trying to get what the user has. Once we are getting what the user has, we have to actually handle the parsing. So parsing is, we actually handle parsing in compiler design. Yeah? So, but I don't want to delve deep into parsing. It's about taking the semantic of a given context. You get something that you want to check the semantic to see whether it actually aligns with, because before the parsing we actually have we can handle the syntax errors and stuff like that, and that's done by a lexical analyzer. I don't want to go deep into that, but yeah, that's one of the things that we handle at our later stages in computer science. Yeah. So but for parsing, you're actually handling such stuff. You are actually handling things like the semantic errors that might come with the data that we are trying to actually fetch from the user. So from there, after passing it, we need to actually do the serialization on this data. You get? So we're going to come here and say serializer, and it's going to be equal to post serializer. We need to get the post serializer, and here we are going to pass in the data. Why am I doing this? Because we have already existing data in the database. We're trying to tell it that this data is the same, it is part of the data that is in the database. You get? So when we say data is equal to data, I'm trying to say that this data is also part of the data that is, because when you say data is equal to data, you are trying to you are trying to tell Django database that this is also part of the data in simple terms. So once you are done with that, you go ahead and I'm done serializing the data. I'm done passing the data. So I need to actually check this serializer and see whether it's valid. You get? So I'm going to say if serializer is valid, we are checking the validity of the serializer. You get? So if it's valid, what should we do? We should save. We simply say serializer dot save, and then we return the JSON response. So I'm going to come here and say return JSON response. And what are we going to return? We are going to return the serializer dot data. We want to get, we are returning. So once we post, we want to actually see what we posted. So we return the serializer dot data. Then we are going to serializer dot data, but then we need to give it a status. You get? The status of we've created it. You get? So you want to actually return a status to show that we've actually created the data. So you are going to actually come here and say 201. So this one basically means you've created this 201 JSON responses. So after that, so in a scenario where the serializer is not valid, it's not valid. So we are going to say else, if it's not valid, just return an error. So we're going to come here and say return. So we're going to return errors. So say serializer dot errors, and then the status is going to be 400. Right? So it's not necessary, and otherwise you can say 404, but this is, so that's the status. So we're trying to say if you get the request, after getting the request, serialize the data that is in the request, check if the serializer is valid. If it's valid, save it. If it's not, if it's valid, save it and return a response of the data and also the status. If it's invalid, you can actually do what? If it's invalid, return the errors and report a status of 400, which is a bad request. Yeah, so from there, we can actually go on to actually test the post as well. You can test the post and see how it actually comes out. Now, obviously here I can't handle the post from, if you actually come back now, we can't actually handle the post from our browser unless if I make some modifications, which I don't want to make the modifications now. So I'm going to use my postman. I'll use the postman. I'll use the postman to actually, I'll use the postman and check to see how things are going to actually come out. So I'm going to actually test my API to see whether I can add or post get, if, oh sorry, if I can post or get. So I'm going to use the postman. So I hope you already have postman installed. If so, then we are good to go. So I'm going to actually have my API here. So my API initially it's posts, as you know. So but now we want to actually get, let's first get and see what we have. So as you can see, I have two, software engineer and then doctor. These are the two. This is the data that I have at the moment. So I need to actually also handle the post and see how it actually does the thing. Yeah. So I'm going to come to post here, and I'm going to click here. So one thing that I want you to actually know, one thing I want you to know is these exceptions always come if at all you are not granted access, if you don't have access to actually access these APIs. So we need to export these APIs. These APIs have to be in a format that allows other to be accessible by any other third party. So in order to do that, we need to actually make a few adjustments. So I'm going to go back to the code. I'm going to go back to the code and make a few adjustments to the code. So I'm going to come here. So by default, I'm not allowed to actually make any changes to what is in the database. So while using Postman, which is a third party. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually add one extra thing. So I'm going to come here and say from REST framework. Okay, let's use from Django views views decorators. Then let's import. Oh, not yet. So let's add the CRF. Let's import the CRF. Then import the CRF exempt. Yeah, this is important to actually grant access to anyone who's trying to access the API, but not through this entire app that I'm running at the moment. So I'm going to come here and add the add sign and then add this. So let me save back and see whether I'm now not forbidden to access this. to access the database. So let's go back to our browser. No, let's go back to Postman and see whether we can actually make this post now. Okay. Let's go to the body section and create. Let me create another title. Yeah. So not mind about this. Let me just say title. Let's say teacher, then author. Let's say Mercy. Then let's say Mercy. Let's go back to our Django and do one minor adjustment. This is supposed to be a pass and not pass. As you can see it here in there, it's specified. It's pass. It's pass, not pass. Yeah, so, you know, there's funny mistakes always have to be there. So let's first go back to our Postman and see whether we can actually do the posting. So we add the title, then this is supposed to be the name. Sorry, this is supposed to be the name, then email. Okay, let's try to send again and see. Now we can send. Yeah, so we can post our data. So if at all I actually do a get request here, we will definitely have this teacher Mercy added. So let's first run again and see. So as you can see that the teacher has been added. So if at all I go back to our browser and now run to see whether the teacher is now reflecting, the teacher has to definitely reflect. So the teacher has been added. So we've been able to handle the two HTTP requests. We are done handling the post and also the get. So watch out for my next video where I'm going to delve deep into handling the remaining two, and that's the get. Sorry, where I'm going to delve deep into handling the remaining two, and that's delete and update. Thank you very much.